The path of financial freedom isn't just for yourself so you can build wealth. It's actually to teach others about financial freedom, because that's something you can literally pass on from one generation to another. So for me, as a father of 4 kids, 1 college-age kids and 3 teens, that's something I think a lot about. So in this video, I want to share with you the 3 truths that I share my kids, and I got a bonus in there for you. So let's do this. Well, hey there, my name is Michael Blank. I teach people how to become financially free by investing with real estate, specifically in apartment buildings. So make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single episode. Hey, our next Dealmaker Live event is typically in the summer, and it's coming up. So go to dealmakerliveevent.com and reserve your tickets. There's going to be in-person component, but there's a very limited amount of tickets. So check it out. It's going to be the multifamily syndication event of the year. So truth number 1 is to teach your kids financial literacy. Now, depending on your kid, I do this, when they're 10 to 12 years old, we expose them to games like Cash Flow 101, really love Cash Flow 101, other games like Monopoly or maybe Life as well, and really expose them into these games where they're learning financial literacy principles while they're having fun. And when you think they're ready for it, have them read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? It really depends on the kid. But normally we'll do it chapter by chapter. We'll have them read a lesson and then we'll discuss it 10 or 15 minutes to see what they have learned. And depending on their learning comprehension, I may have them read it again a year or 2 later. But the principle is the same thing. And then you look for everyday ways to try to apply what they've learned in the book. For example, and you might be going along and saying, hey, identify, is that an asset or liability? Why? Right, quickly learning numbers like percentages. Well, calculate the percentage a tip in a restaurant. So look for everyday ways to teach financial literacy principles to your kids. Truth number 2, encourage entrepreneurship. Right, so allow your kids to be entrepreneurial. Encourage them to be entrepreneurial. It doesn't really matter if they want to do a lemonade stand or whatever. Encourage that kind of behavior. I remember when my daughter was 7, she went around the neighborhood and she sold her drawings for like $10 a piece, and she was so proud of herself. But this was amazing. It was amazing. Instead of saying, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, which would have probably crushed her, that this is really great. Now she overcame some of her fear of ringing a doorbell, and it's a great experience for her. Our boys both did Boy Scouts, and so as Cub Scouts, actually, they have to sell popcorn, right? And that's kind of, that's not an easy thing to do. And some people just shut the door in your face and they say no, others buy it, right? They have to deal with rejection. They have to deal with, well, gosh, not everyone's a winner. There's going to be someone who sold the most, and it might not be you. And so these entrepreneurial activities are really meaningful and priceless, really. So you want to try to encourage that those kind of experiments. Our truth number 3 is you have to encourage your kids to make mistakes. And that's because mistakes, that's how we grow in life, right? And school, unfortunately, doesn't teach that at all. In fact, there's really only one correct answer, but life typically has more than one correct answer to a problem. School also does not reward mistakes, does it? No, they do exactly the opposite. You get points taken off if you make a mistake. But in real life, that's not how real life is. So for example, I go back to the Scouts. It's a fantastic program. But for example, in the Scouts, they tell the kids, hey, you got to bring a second dry pair in case the first one gets wet. Well, so the kid doesn't bring a dry pair, and they leave their shoes outside with their socks in, and it rains. And the next day they wake up and now their socks are wet and they don't have a second pair. Well, guess what? They don't give them a second pair. No, they make them walk around in a wet pair of socks. Now, it's like they're not going to make that mistake again. So what I love about that is it gives them a safe environment to make mistakes. And that's exactly what you want to do as parents, is create a safe environment for your kids to make mistakes. Because mistakes is really where the growth happens. I mean, think about yourself. How much do you learn from your successes? Well, some things, but you learn the biggest things. Your character evolves the most from mistakes and challenges and setbacks you have. Therefore, mistakes are a good thing to help a person become a better version of themselves. Remember the old adage from Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad? It's not how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. So I want to encourage my kids to save 10% and to give 10%. One of the ways we're going to do that is by creating a blank family bank, okay? And this is the way it works. So in order to encourage our kids to save so that they can eventually invest, I want them to become in the right quadrant, to be in the I, they're going to need some kind of money. So in order to do that, we're going to create this blank family bank, right? And they're going to put money in this thing. And while it's in there, I'm going to pay them 12% per annum. Okay, so that's 1% a year, I'm going to have one of my kids create a spreadsheet. Big surprise that I'm creating a spreadsheet. And one of my daughter probably is going to run the bank. Maybe we'll get paid for something, maybe not. I'm not exactly sure. But so every time they have money in the bank, every single month, they will be paid 1% of whatever their balance is right now. And so with that, hopefully that will encourage them to want to save more money and then eventually to invest. So that might be an idea for you to try. So there you have it. That's what's going on in the Blanc household. Those are the four truths that we teach our kids to be financially free, to develop that financial literacy, because that's how you exercise your entrepreneurial muscle and how you eventually become financially free. So hopefully you can implement some of those tactics in your family as well. I'm Michael Blanc. Catch you next time.